The opening words of this Holy Mass were very mystical. Dum medium silentium, with the ancient chant which accompanies it, rising from the heart of the monastic centuries. Silentium. It has been applied to what happened in the heart of night when the Word became flesh. It was in a deep silence that the wisdom of God jumped down from on high. And his language was silence. The language of the Blessed Trinity is silence. The language of man in the 21st century is noise, is noise, is noise. The first reading took me back to the quietness, the noiselessness, the unclutteredness of the Carthusian cell. For this verse was read regularly at prime. Prime is the old hour of around 6 a.m., when the sun is really risen. And ubi venit plenitudo temporum rings in the mind, for morning after morning something would happen or not happen as the day dawned, when the fullness of time had come. I remember one morning reading those words with great joy. Today at last my brother is coming to see me, after 2 or 3 years of not seeing him, waiting for something to happen. And time comes and brings its presents. Little things. But I would like you to come with me to that Carthusian cell and to experience for a few seconds this morning the unclutteredness of living without things like this. You all know what that is. Now, when one gets into a motor car, and if this contraption is therein, one has the choice of switching that or not. And the consequences of that simple action are not indifferent. One opts for the duration of that moment of potential solitude not to be alone. And also not to be alone with one's thoughts, or able even to have one's thoughts. Because, believe me, as long as this little machine is on, one is thinking the thoughts of another. And if you're not careful, if you're actually using it not to listen to good teaching, and I'm dropping a heavy hint there, good teaching from a CD, but to live, pumped noise coming from indirectly or directly the jaws of hell, then one is in a different world altogether. Because people do not realize that by exposing themselves to useless noise and bad messages, the quality of their time, which brings me back to the starting point, is being inquinated and contaminated. Time. The last Sunday of the year demands precisely a reflection on the use of it. I mentioned this with regard to a direct way of influencing the quality of our time. But another would be what each of us, I presume, has, even from a very early age, in his or her pocket. This. Now, if I open this and press it, what happens? Nothing. That is all because of one tiny movement, pressing the red button. Not just before Mass, but for a good chunk of the day. That simple action of not being accessible automatically changes the quality of those hours, big time. I was talking to Father Thomas Cunningham one day about this issue, and he muttered to me, I got rid of it last year. It was a pest. so they'll find me if they want me. But it's true. I remember hearing this reflection in France years ago with regard to, this was not yet en route, it was in those days the beginnings of accessibility through the bleep. People in the monastery could have accessibility through a bleep system. You're being wanted. Now, the abbot of a big monastery in France, great author, André Louf, said, "No, I will not be accessible." And the reason was this: the person that I have before me is the only one in the whole universe at that point. I have no right to divide my attention and to give it to a virtual presence. This, my friends, in the last 10 years has changed the face of the earth, has changed the nature even of human psychology. Why? If you have this on in your solitude, you are not alone, and you are not able anymore to be alone. Look at people from an early age. The first moment of solitude, what happens? It's not the same. Come back with me to the cell. For all those years, about 10 years, there was no presence but that of the Lord. Now that makes a huge difference, because one hears the word on the page, for instance. One hears the word in one's mind, the memories. One hears the page of a letter. A person now, always buzzing and being bombarded, does not hear the little things. And life is poorer, even psychologically, from that. Just the other day, I was given this. It came from Smarmore Castle. It's an old book going back to the early 1700s or thereabouts. And it's still legible. There, the first half is the original Greek of the Epictetus, and the second half is the Latin translation. And I opened it, and I was knocked between the eyes by just the first sentence. There is truth in one sentence. All it is this: there are some things in life that we are over, and other things over which we have no power. Just a word echoing from pre-Christian times. You know, Epictetus, a slave, a Stoic slave who irritated his master so much that he was being tortured by his master. There he was, and his master was pulling and turning and twisting his leg, while the Stoic philosopher of a slave shamed him without flinching, just looked at him in the eyes and said, "You're going to break it." So he, furious with rage, carried on twisting and twisting, and a few seconds later the slave replied, "I told you you would." And that, slave, is what has left us this doctrine of accepting what we cannot change and not being changed by what changes. A great secret. Why should we go up and down according to what happens around us? The soul that is fortified is based on the inaccessibility of the will. I will not be moved. Now, when it comes to the closing of the eyes of the human being, what happens, therefore, at the end of the time that we have? The moment after death, the soul sees itself even as it is, just the very thing it cannot do when it has no contact with itself, because it's being bombarded. Listen to this. and translate to your own situation. Interests which seemed overpowering during our mortal life dwindle into insignificance. And so-called trifles stand out in immense importance. I mean, e.g., the rosary that Mrs. So-and-so said. That's far more important than being on RTE and being in the limelight when it comes to this point in time. The glamour of earthly praise or blame and the merely human standards of honour and dishonour are scorned for their ludicrous inadequacy. When the cold, steady, white light of the sun of infinite righteousness shines on our past. For some, no doubt, it will be as if they were members of a theatre troupe, when, in their tinsel and tawdry finery, suddenly stepped from the artificial footlights into the blazing light of a summer's day at noontide. For some, no doubt, who in fear and trembling worked out their salvation and who with anxious scrutiny examined and weighed their deeds, despairing of themselves and only trusting in the mercy of God, for them it will be like passing from the twilight of a winter's day into the clarity of a morning in spring. I return to where I started. To see things clearly, we need to see them calmly. To hear the sound of a word, even a word coming from way back, pre-Christian times, one needs to simplify and reduce the number of messages begging our attention. Work on it, my friends, in this new year, which will only come once. The quality of your day, the choice depends on you alone. It's big time trouble if we can't be alone with our thoughts.